All right, welcome back. Matt Stein, Steiny and Guru Johnson, and I'm assuming we are joined by Dan Dibley.
Look at him dancing, both of them.
There he is, Dan Dibley and Mark Willard. Hey,
Willard.
guys, how are you?
What's going on, fellas?
What's up out there?
Miss ya.
Well, we're just talking to some Warrior players, talking about the Niners, revisiting Gabe Kapler. All three teams got action right now, of some sort or another.
I thought of you guys, actually, as I was on the way in. You guys were kind of, ham and egg and all the different stuff going on, and it dawned on me that the two of you had not had the opportunity to speak about the Gabe Kapler situation, because it literally broke like 4.5 minutes after you walked out of here on Friday. So I was interested to know what you guys had to say.
I feel like I get it. Like Guru is upset that they did one and not the other. What's Gabe Kapler's best attribute as a manager?
Well,
that's a 4.
I mean, what is his best attribute as a manager?
Or one of them,
Well, in a boss, I like consistency. So I would say that. But you have to, it's like, what are you consistent with, right? And so is your plan working? Is your communication, is it enough? I'll say this, especially now, because I didn't say it that much on Friday, because now we've gone into the weekend and talked to people and sort of, figure out what's going on. I think there's a lot more here than meets the eye. I think there's a lot more here, and that's always the case, right? But the idea that this was simply about the Giants' record and there's a scapegoat, there's got to be a fall guy, they've got to make a move. There's plenty of all of that. However, I do think that there were some things specific to Gabe in that clubhouse that were addressed on Friday.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
And I've been a part of businesses, so if the Giants ownership simply told Farhan, you're keeping your job, but you need to go fire Gabe, go do it, I probably would have did the same thing. But it reeks and it stinks, because all I've been told about Gabe Kapler when he came here, he was a puppet. He had no control. But why I do think he deserved to be fired is the Pasoy problem. The fact that you had 3 of your players try to police the clubhouse, but I was told you didn't go that far. You didn't get your hands dirty. So to me, it blew up on your watch, and if they wanted to remove you, you got to go. But the fact that Farhan is still here when he bought the groceries, he was the actual real chef, and everything to me is blown up on his watch. I just find it, I don't know, I just don't like it that he's still here. And Dibs, who I want to hear from, and I'm not, is the higher ups from the Giants as to what went into, okay, one goes and not both. So I hope I don't come across like I'm hating on Farhan, but if Gabe went, both of them should have went.
Well, I think you're in a spot now where if this doesn't get better between now and April, you might make that change. But Mark and I were talking about this on Friday. We actually were interviewing Fred Warner when the news broke, and we both kind of had the look on our face of like, we're going to have to cut 54 short, which sucks because they're the hottest thing going. But I think now you're in a spot where Farhan's got to do something between now and the spring, and maybe they give him an extension or maybe they make him ride it out. But if you fire the GM and the manager at the same time, to me, that reeks of a rebuild. And you're in a spot where Farhan's done some good things in terms of rebuilding the farm and getting this team into a competitive space. So do you want to get rid of both? You got to replace both. You need a new direction. I'm wondering, based on what we learned on Friday, who the managerial hire will be. It might just be a stopgap guy, knowing that Farhan is, on his last days, or you give Farhan a vote of confidence and an extension, and you let him hire a new manager.
Let me throw this at you guys, particularly Willard, because he tends to look at things like this. I can't help. Not that you don't, Dibs. You're very insightful also. But I'm thinking about the way this all came down, and you have the owner's son or the owner saying, yeah, it'll probably be back, whatever. And then you have, I don't want to say a firestorm, but then you have some really indicting stories come out. And Mark, you brought up the Logan Webb walking with Kapler for 20 minutes. And then we had the Pusoy thing with Baggerly. Then Susan Slusser had a story that was interesting. It's something, you know what I mean? It was almost as though, and this is just a hunch, that some people in there got the sense that Kapler might be back, and it almost feels like they said, that can't happen. We got to let some cats out of the bag.
I mean, put it this way. Do I think that there were some players who did not want Gabe Kapler to be the manager anymore? Yeah, I do. Absolutely. So now you take that with a grain of salt if you want. The players don't get to make the decisions. No one individual does, unless you want to point to the owner, I guess. But even that's a group. So... But you're sort of insinuating, did everyone get the sense that Kapler was back and then sort of like band together a bunch of stories to make sure that wasn't the case? I don't know about that. I just think this, like Guru, when you said, it doesn't seem fair that Farhan's back and Gabe stays, that sort of makes it all about the umbrella issue. You two didn't succeed. You both should go. It's not that simple, I think. I don't think that this was not like, oh, you finished fourth, you're gone. Because you're right, they share in that blame. So does ownership and so do the players, quite frankly. But I think that this decision was a combination of, A, the Giants had to do something because it was an angry mob situation, no doubt. But B, there's more to it. There's definitely more to the fact that when you're talking about clubhouse chemistry, preparation, laissez-faire type of an attitude, all of these things, I think that there was a little bit more than meets the eye, is not as simple as results.
That may be fair. Dibs, where do you kind of weigh in on all this?
Well, I think that the roster is not good enough and the manager was not good enough. But if you look at who did their job worse, I think that over the last 6 to 8 weeks, Gabe Kapler took the lead because you lost the clubhouse. So you look at the over-under going in the year, and I think it was 81.5, and you wound up a little bit short of that mark. So your team was going to be mediocre no matter what, based on what Vegas thought and the way your roster was composed. Should Farhan have made moves at the deadline? Absolutely, but he chose not to. And from that point on, Gabe Kapler had a team that you pointed out, Steiny. They were 13 games above 500 for a time. You came out of the break. You won your first 5. And since then, you absolutely sniffed the bed. And from that point on, with the same collection of players, why was your team so bad? And then it felt like you lost the clubhouse. Guys were starting to turn against Gabe Kapler. So I think the pendulum of blame swung more firmly into Kapler's square. But I'm with you, Goo. I thought that these two were linked. I didn't think you'd do one without the other. So I'm a little bit shocked. But obviously Farhan went up there and was able to make a sales pitch to ownership to say, hey, I can fix this. It's Gabe. It's not both of us.
You know what, Dibs and Willard and Steiny, what reeks and what bothers me is we don't hear from the hot. Where's Larry Bear? I want to hear Farhan's boss talk. Give us a State of the Union. And the fact that Farhan hasn't closed a free agent deal, which is one component of his job, your free agent signings were so-so, and the fact that you thought this manager was a leader of a clubhouse, that's bye-bye, baby. That's old school Giants. So am I being nosy, guys, if I want to hear from Farhan's boss about what went into keeping Farhan and jetsoning Gabe? And then this the last piece. He couldn't finish out the Dodgers series.
That's my thing,
You had
Goo.
to cap him on a Friday.
All right, let me speak on that. Let me speak on that.
Goo. They didn't have to do
Let me
that.
speak on that. What if I told you, and this is not a report.
Okay.
This is a guess. I bet Gabe asked for it.
Steiny said that.
I really firmly believe this to be the case. It's an extension of what I said to Dibs about this on Friday. I know how that feels. And by the way, I was up at a golf course over the weekend, just putting with the little guy, and there was a group of 3 guys on the first tee, and they were saying exactly what the two of you are saying. How dare they not let him at least finish out the year? It became so obviously, that he was going to be fired, that I really believe that the Giants were in a situation where it would have been doing him even dirtier to send him to the media scrum 3 more times. Also, it overshadows Brandon Crawford, all of that stuff. I really feel strongly that there's at least a solid chance that Gabe went to them and said, look, can we talk about this right now? If you're going to do it, and let's move forward.
Interesting.
Yeah. My point was that they themselves, through their own leaking stories and through their own, Farhan going on another station and talking about the tenuous situation, they created an environment where everyone was starting to speculate
That's fair.
that it was going to happen. So they did that. And I agree with Mark that, Kapler probably went to them and said, let's do it now, as opposed to a 3-day dog and pony. But they were the ones who created that, because up until that point, all of us were thinking, vote of confidence, they're going to get 1 more year, even though it's been a terrible fade. And it wasn't until they started bumping their gums, ownership and Farhan himself, that this became a real thing.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco. Always live on the free Odyssey app. Twitch and YouTube powered by First NorCal Credit Union. The one piece of the puzzle I'm struggling to figure it out is, the owner's son indicating that they were likely to be back. That's the one thing that just doesn't make sense in this to me. I
mean, doesn't it feel very reminiscent of Mike Dunleavy Jr. saying Jordan Poole's under contract, we expect him here for 4 more years? That's all he said. All he said was they're under contract, so we expect them back. To me, that is the new sort of ride the fence when people ask for a vote of confidence. You can either slam your feet into the ground and say they will be back, or you can get really wishy-washy and be like, we're not sure. And either way, everyone knows what those mean. But to split the difference is to say, well, they're under contract. So, we have, in this moment, nothing tells us that they will not honor their contract next year. I think when you hear that going forward, that's a plausible deniability situation.
And Steiny, you saw The Godfather, right? I think it was Godfather 2 when Michael goes up to Fredo and just gives him that big smooch on the cheek. Night. Next thing you know, Fredo's out fishing with the boys.
Oh, man.
You broke my heart, Fredo. You broke my heart.
Hey, let's put it right on the table.
Isn't that Don? No, it's what was that guy's name? The actor. He was a great actor.
Yeah, he was in a lot of things. Deer Hunter and all the rest of it. Rest in peace.
Willard, I got a name for you two. Any name coming to mind for the next Giant manager?
Stephen Vogt.
I got Joe Madden.
I would be shocked if Farhan Zaidi at the wheels hires an old school, gruff, stubborn manager. That would surprise. Like Joe Madden, have you read what Joe Madden thinks of analytics? He thinks big bucket of crap is what he thinks analytics is.
Well, analytics is not what got Gabe. What got Gabe is he couldn't check dudes and tell them to put down the cards and quit playing and focus on your game and your craft.
Right, but your new manager is going to have to work with Farhan Zaidi at least for 1 year. And I like Farhan and Joe Madden. I don't think so.
Jim Leland, and if he's not available, Jack McKeon.
No.
Both still with us.
There's let's face it, there's only one guy that can cause excitement here. Ozzie Guillen.
Oh,
jeez.
Give me Ozzie Guillen.
I thought you were going Tony La Russa.
I think, hey, how would you guys take that if you got a press conference and the 3 chairs are Stephen Vogt, Farhan Zaidi, and Buster Posey? How's it grab you?
I'll take it.
Oh, Buster Posey all day.
Well, Buster's just there. He's not managing.
Right.
But he's like, here's the catcher who is going to manage.
I think, look, it can't be just a coincidence that Posey's been around. I think he's headed to, a front office type job at at the very least, I would think.
Oh, he's going to have a huge voice. Yeah.
And like Posey, I don't see as a manager. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Willard,
Not
where's
yet.
the vote
Not
talk
yet.
coming from?
Well, I mean, Slessor threw that out over the weekend. I don't think she's throwing that out for no reason at all. But also just run the history there. First of all, very, very well-respected, loved dude in the clubhouse. I don't think there'd be any teammates left from when he was with the Giants, but that's a guy who's very well-liked in baseball circles. I think he probably has the desire at some point. Young enough to still relate to the players, has that catcher background. Could he be great for Patrick Bailey, who's going to be a leader going forward? But also remember, he was with the A's when Farhan was with the A's. Like and was brought over also during that time to the Giants. So I think there's a relationship and a mutual respect there. Just I don't have any report, but that's something that spoke to me when I heard that over the weekend.
Interesting. All right, let's go to the Niners. Let's go to the Niners. 35-16 win. How we feeling?
You know what stands out to me about the Niners right now? It's 2:04. What time did we all start talking? About 15 minutes ago? Mm-hmm. The San Francisco 49ers look like the absolute best team in football. The quarter pole MVP is in their backfield. I heard you reference my tweet. Brock Purdy would probably finish like 4th or 5th right now. So they've got two guys who are probably in the top 5 of MVP voting, not that matters 4 weeks in. They are so freaking good that there's not been 1 minute of one game yet this year where I felt like they were in danger of losing a football game. They're so good that the afternoon after a game, it took us 15 minutes to even bring them up. They're like, this is too relaxing, and I'm not saying.
What about those long Cardinal drives?
I heard you earlier trying to create some of that. Some of that. I do think that there are questions about the secondary, lowercase questions, not big ones. And one of the big plays on that drive, Steiny, was a 43-yard pass play, and the touchdown that they got was a broken coverage. It was blown coverage on the back end. So there are things that need to get cleaned up to be certain. But this team, and I was telling Mark this before we jumped on with you guys, reminds me a little bit of the Kevin Durant Warriors, where you kind of knew they were going to win. And it wasn't that it was boring, but the idea of the result in a lot of those games was not in question. And even yesterday, you mentioned it, Arizona scores to cut it to 21-16. I don't know how many people out there had that feeling of, or that, you kind of felt like the Niners would get the ball back and score. And even if they didn't, even if Arizona went down and scored again to go up 23-21 or 24-21, I still wouldn't have been worried, because this offense, this guy, Christian McCaffrey, I mean, he's unbelievable right now. And so as long as you have this offense intact with that quarterback as the maestro, even if they fall behind a team, I'm not going to worry.
You know what? Oh,
well, no, I was
right next to each other.
I threw this out earlier, and it's a question for Steve Wilkes, but I wonder if, their defense has always been great, but now their offense is really good. It's much better than it was under Garoppolo. I wonder if the fact that the 49ers know they're going to score more changes their defensive philosophy in any manner, makes them maybe almost more conservative, maybe a little more bend and don't break, just because they know they don't have to defend a team with Jimmy Garoppolo who might get you only 20.
You know what I see? I actually think about the defensive coordinators on or the offensive coordinators on the other side. Have you guys noticed, it feels to me like all 4 quarterbacks that the 49ers have played, their coordinator said, here's the deal. Hot potato. Get rid of the football as quickly as possible. Because if you don't, you're going to get absolutely torched by this defensive line. So how many long passes have you even seen attempted by a 49er opponent so far this year.
Well, I'm with you, Willard, but your boy yesterday was sitting back in that pocket, and Hollywood Brown got behind Warner one time where the plays were developing and they hit. But on most weeks, you're right. And I'm nitpicking because they are the best team in the league, but I just thought we would see across the board more ferociousness with Hargrave. We had a caller, Leroy, talked about Armstead. I can't put it at his doorstep, but fundamentally, there is something like the offense now is ahead of the defense. How about that?
Well, look,
and it ain't over.
Dobbs is playing good football this year.
Yeah, he is.
Do you know that he's one of the other two QBs who's not thrown a pick yet this year? Like he's fast. He's making good decisions. He's not dynamic, but he beat the hell out of the Cowboys last week. So I don't think Arizona's the joke that everyone sort of thought they'd be. But I just noticed that if you're going to point to one or two plays, over a 3 or 4 game stretch, the bottom line is nobody has gone over the top. Nobody's even tried to go over the top of this Niner defense. Right. And if you're just going to be like 5 yards here, 5 yards there, are you going to be able to put together drives? Here and there, maybe, but the other team's going to end up with somewhere between, 12 and 20 points every time. And if they do that and the Niners don't turn the ball over, they are going to go 17-0.
Yeah, they had the 2 big pass plays yesterday. One was the one you talked about, Goo, over to Brown over Warner's head for 15, and then on Steiny's 99-yard drive, it was a 41-yarder off a play action to Hollywood Brown. Well designed, well executed. But other than that, Arizona did nothing, and they only had 2 drives in the second half before the Niners put the game on ice at 35-16. So, sometimes your best defense is an offense that possesses the ball.
Well, speaking of possessing the ball, though, real quick, also, Zach Ertz, ladies and gentlemen, for all of you who lost money because of Sean McVegas.
Oh, my God. Zach
Ertz gave it all back to you. So I hope everybody remembers that. Zach Ertz dropped that touchdown at the end that would have made it a 12-point final. So I hope everybody got their money back.
When he's like somebody I know to the Kansas City night game, Dibs watching Mahomes take a knee, that hurt my heart, boy.
Yeah, it's tough.
If you don't go in there and get that TD, oh, man, but I understood it.
Yeah.
Hey, I was going to fight Dibs real quick on the Durant comp, but I can't because when Durant initially came, they hadn't won it yet, but you felt like they were. Steiny now, I feel like he won't admit it. He's come around on the Super Bowl or bust. Guys, to me, it's bigger than these 4 games. This team has been dominant the past few years, and I can't let that go, and that's why this is good. But Willard and Dibs, we've seen this, and now I just feel like the cat's out the bag, and everybody knows. You got to do it, but you have no reason not to.
I agree with you, Goo, but we need to come up with a better second half of that expression because there is no bust about it. I think it's Super Bowl we must, and I said this at the summit because they really should be in the last 4. They should be in the Super Bowl. They very well could be or should be win the whole thing.
The chef, yeah.
I know my saying's not as fun, but it's Super Bowl or try again next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we just saw it.
Yeah. Listen, this is one of the few years where when a season starts, what all of us across the board predicted kind of feels like it was true. Like it already feels like Niners and Eagles clashed in the NFC. And after what happened in Buffalo yesterday, and I know the Chiefs and Bills both have a blemish, but they look like the 2 best teams. And so those are the 4 squads, and I don't necessarily know what's going to happen when we get to the end or if any of them are going to experience some sort of adversity before we get there. But I'm not even really willing yet to set the 49ers apart from those other teams.
Okay.
Like, I know they're blowing people out. The schedule has a little something to do with that. Maybe I'll feel differently after Sunday Night Football this week. Let's see what that looks like. That's a different kind of a challenge. But yeah, look, it's a phenomenal start. They have not lost a regular season football game since before Halloween of last year.
And Purdy's undefeated.
We are closing in on a full calendar year of 0 regular season losses.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Pretty
incredible.
amazing. All right,
We'll
gentlemen.
see you tomorrow, buddy.
You have a great show, and we'll see you in there tomorrow.
All right, go
See you,
get the
boys.
chef. The chef.